All right, welcome back, everybody. We are on our third guest speaker of today out here at the Oracle Paranormal Festival.
I can hear now.
Can you hear?
Okay.
So we want to welcome to the stage Miss Becky McKiddy-Gydesen, you said, or Gydesen? Sorry, I'm horrible with names. So if you're ready, we'll let you take it away here.
Hello, my name is Becky McKiddy-Gydesen, and here with my historian, Kira, we are here to talk about history and the paranormal, how it ties in together. So why history? History is very important, of course. It's important for everyone to know the reasons of, cultures, political issues, history of buildings, history of the land. It's very important to tie it in, especially for the paranormal field. With knowing the history of a place, then we definitely can learn about who could be haunting the buildings themselves, and it could just be the land. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the building. It could be the land, it could be objects, but knowing the history is definitely a very important thing to know in the paranormal field. So Tucson history. So it's one of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements in the United States, which I think surprises a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people actually realize that Tucson is one of the oldest cities in the US. So as Kira has stated, from 2500 BCE to 1450, it was basically the tribes. From 1450 to current is the Tohono O'odham that was basically here. 1687 is Father Kino visits. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, Kira. Okay, and builds his mission. And then 1775, this is where my ghost tour starts to actually talk about in downtown Tucson, is the 1775 time period, and where we start taking over from the Spaniards coming in.
And also that picture is the oldest picture of Tucson I could find scouring the internet, from 1879.
Oh, wow. So, and that's from downtown area.
Yep. Where we do our stuff.
Okay, so with continuing with the Tucson history, 1821, Tucson becomes a part of Mexico. Then we, of course, gain independence from Mexico. 1854, it becomes U.S. territory. With the Gydesen Purchase, 1867 to 1877, serves as the capital of the Arizona Territory. And 1877, Tucson is incorporated as a city. 1880 is when the Southern Pacific starts to come through, and this is when we start to get more populated, and this is where we tie into the tombstone stuff because of everyone coming through Tucson. And 1912 is when Arizona becomes a state. Okay, so the connection. Number one, knowing history can tell us what questions to ask. You want to make them appropriate for any of your paranormal investigations. You don't want to be asking, have you gone to Disneyland? If, it's someone from, the 1800s, they're not going to know what Disneyland is. Number two, knowing history can help us know how to act and what to avoid during investigations. Now, granted, a lot of the times we probably are offending the spirits because we're women in shorts, showing legs and ankles. And back in the 1800s, that is not something women did. So we probably do offend them, but we do go in and we do apologize for the way we dress. But we do that, knowing that we have to dress this way because otherwise we will burn and, pass out. Number three, knowing history can help us make sense of the evidence. So if we're reviewing evidence and we're getting a specific name, a specific title of something, knowing that history will help us tie in. Okay, questions to ask. So history allows us to know what questions to ask, which would be appropriate. Again, you're not going to ask someone from the 1800s about Disney. You want to ask questions about TikTok in a place that was built, in the 1800s. It allows us to find names and see if there are responses. So like at Colosso Cave, we knew that Frank was one of the founders, and we knew that we could be talking to Frank. So we would ask questions directly to Frank to try to get him to interact. How to act. So we want to watch what we do. We want to be aware of the culture that, and the mannerism and the traditions they had back then. Again, a lot of times when we go into places and we're in shorts and showing legs, we do apologize for the way we dress, because we do know back in those days they didn't dress like this. We also want to, of course, be polite and respectful. We never demand anything. We never demand that they come out. We never demand that they do something. We ask nicely, can you please come do this? Can you please do this for us? What we talk about among the team, I'm laughing at this because there's a reason she put this in, AKA not to the spirits. So if I'm talking to her, I do not want to say men suck. This is because we did this one time, and it was nothing against men, but there were some relationship problems going on with team members, and so I was being supportive as the lead, telling them, yes, men do suck. Well, the spirits did not appreciate that, and I ended up scratched. So you want to be careful of what you're talking about outside of the investigation when you're in the building still, because they are always listening. I find that hilarious. You had to cut it. Make sense of the evidence. So what was the location before? So 191 Toole Avenue, it was one of the places we investigated. It was a cemetery at one point in time. So we have to keep in mind that it wasn't always a concert venue. And at one point in time, it was a cemetery. And unfortunately, that cemetery was in disarray, and it was falling apart. So these are things we need to keep in mind. What type of evidence we get. So if we're getting something that talks about a cemetery and we tie it into, okay, that makes sense to why we're getting it in that location. Who died either at the property or near the property, and who could have a strong, connection to the property. So like owners of previous things like Frank from Colosso Cave, they stick around because they had that strong connection to the property. And we always want to make sure that we're being polite. And the You're Welcome at Colosso Cave, what was that from again, Kira?
So that was from Colosso Cave. Everyone was kind of thanking Frank for doing all the hard work to help preserve the cave, because it was not well taken care of before him. But we had a shadow figure going on at the same time. But when I listened back to my recorder, we had like, thank you, Frank, thank you, Frank. In the space in between, there was another voice that said, like, you're welcome. And so it led us to believe that it probably was Frank. Or
Yeah, it was probably Frank letting us know that he was there to accept our thank yous. Okay, our favorites. Number 1, Colosso Cave. Do you have slides with these, or okay? Number 2, JoJo's and Otan Artisan. Number 3, Arizona History Museum, and number 4, Fox Theater. So we're going to focus on these.
If you want, I can do the history.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. You can do the history. Do you want to talk loud? Okay.
All right, so Colosso Cave. I have actually done a lot of research on it because I find it fairly fascinating. Just like looking at like all the different parts of the cave that has been used over time. So it was used by the Holcomb as early as 900 as mainly as like a shelter. We think about the area where we have like storms and things like that, or they need shelter from like the elements, the heat, things like that. It wasn't so much like they were living full time in the cave or anything, but they'd go in just to be safe for a short period of time. The cave was rediscovered in 1879 by Solomon Lick, and it was named the Mountain Spring Cave. In 1887, trained robbers used the cave as a hideout on at least 3 different occasions. We kind of get some like more legends, but we might have been used a bit more. But we know it's documented at least 3 times in April, August, and October of that year. In 1905, the cave was being used for bat guano mining. So that's when a lot of damage. And also originally, when the cave was found, people would go in and like take off parts of the cave, like the stalactites and stalagmites and things. So there was damage already starting to occur, especially by that point, damage was starting to happen. It was renamed Colossal Cave in 1917 and opened for cave tourism under the ownership of Frank Schmidt, who, like we talked about earlier, being a very prominent person in the cave. 2 different civilian conservation corps worked in the park and from 1934 to 1937 and really helped create Colossal Cave how it is today. Has anyone here ever been to Colossal Cave? Yes. So we know it's like there's all the stairs, there's the other buildings. That was because of the Civilian Conservation Corps and all their hard work helping out in there as well.
And with knowing this history about Colossal Cave, it helped with our paranormal investigation. What Kira did not note here, though, was the fact that we did learn from, I think it was the manager, that they found 2 deceased Indians in the cave.
They weren't sure. I did go back, and there was originally, when there was some sort of expedition around the time it was named Colossal Cave, they did find 2 skeletons believed to be indigenous people.
Yeah, because they believe that that's who was in the cave at the time. So with knowing this, it helped our investigation. We knew to be talking to Frank. We knew about, the people who had passed. Our experiences there was we did get disembodied voices in the living room. We do believe that that was probably Frank at that point in time. The shadow figure peeking around the corner in the, I don't even remember where these rooms were, but the drapery room and an EVP came in at the same exact time as the figure. Lots of shadows figures there, a ton of shadows figures. One of the most ones that we had the most experience with that was the most impressive was there's a group of 15, 20 of us in a room, and we all saw the shadow moving. We were all in shock because we thought it was someone creating the shadow figure. So we asked everyone, move around, do this. There was no recreating it, but 15 people saw this shadow.
Yeah. And this is when we heard the "You're welcome." Was in between that time we saw the shadow moving in and out. It had a very human-like figure to it. Almost looked like they were wearing a hat.
Yeah.
It was so distinct that you could see that, and it was just what? I was mesmerized. I was just oh my gosh.
We heard footsteps. Of course, being the cave, it's very easy to hear footsteps. We were all sitting. We could hear footsteps approaching us. We had various equipment going off, flashlights, ghost meters, and I was touched in there. Not the first, not the last. And the history connection was the EVP and the shadow figure happened when employees in the cave were thanking Frank. So we believe that since we were in there, thanking Frank, having him there, that's what made him appear. All right, I'll let you do the history of JoJo's.
All right, so JoJo's and also Old Town Artisans that are kind of in that same area is within the original bounds of the Spanish Presidio, and it was the stables area during that time. The building itself was built in the 1850s. And so then there's some stuff on the inside, like the roof, which is made out of saguaro ribs, and some wallpaper that do date back to 1860s, 1870s, that era. In 1882, as far as records go, we knew that there was a clerk, an assayer, a grocery store, and a woman's nurse at this building. And then in 1888, it became a distillery store and resident for Julius Goldbaum, who he did a lot about doing liquor bottles and was a really big alcohol distiller in the area in that time, a big pioneer of the Tucson area. Since then, there's been many businesses. And we knew the Dusty Monk Pub was for sure in there. We knew a gas station for sure was in there. And then it became a restaurant in the 1990s known as La Cocina, but now changed its name to JoJo's.
All right, JoJo's experiences. We've been working with them for I've been in business for 13 years. We've been working with them for probably about 12. So we've had a lot more than just this. The smell of cigar smoke, one of the cowboys there is a cigar smoker. He is very protective of women especially. So women especially will have that cigar smoke because he will surround you and protect you. We've seen puppets move. I hated this one so much. We were doing an investigation in the antique store. There's puppets hanging from the ceiling. May offered to buy them for me for my birthday, and I said, no, thank you. As soon as I said, no, thank you, they literally started moving on their own. We've seen shadows, mist, apparitions. I've seen the little girl personally. I thought it was my daughter playing tricks on me, but it was the little girl there. We had one of our trigger objects actually flip off of a table. We've heard the radio turn on by itself. We've had door handles jiggle, loud bangs. The horses, which I am going to let you talk about that in a minute, felt tugging on pants and clothes from the little girl. And the horse thing, I'll let you do that history connection because I had no clue about this. And I told Kira about hearing horses and then she found this.
Yeah, so actually it was interesting. I was looking through a bunch of old maps. I was helping Becky like revamp her tour, trying to find a bit more history about some of these buildings. And I was looking through, I was like, I want to see how far back I can go on this building. Like I want to see. And so I go on the maps and I find like the map about like where the Presidio and everything. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna look at the cross streets, figure it out. And then it's like stables. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. I remember being I remember one of the first times I went there with Becky, she talked about the horse neighing experience and how it was just so strange. You know, it's nighttime, downtown Tucson. There's no horses.
Yeah.
like there's no horses around at that time. So then I put the stables there and I was like, Becky, look what I found. And it was the stables area. Like that was like, for me, this is like one of the most like explicit, like, examples of history.
Yeah, the history and paranormal coming together.
And being like, whoa, that's really awesome.
Yeah. And so next we have the Arizona History Museum. We work with them yearly. We actually have our next ghost hunt with them on October 17th. And I'll let you do the history again.
So this building was built on a vacant lot. You know where it is. It's right next to the U of A. So it was opened in 1955. But for this one, it's really what's inside the museum that's really important, as we believe, you know, we have haunted objects and energies and spirits that can attach to things. Inside this museum, there are a decent amount of indigenous artifacts ranging in time period. There's some Spanish colonial silver, the Mexican emperor and empress jewelry in there, lots of mining artifacts, lots of stuff from Tucson, lots of stuff like recreation of a mine, and then a lot of like old cars, wagon and buggy, things like that.
So our experiences in there, we have seen shadows near the transportation area, almost looking like they were just getting ready to go on one of the buggies to do one of their trips. We heard doors opening and closing, even though everyone was in areas and we weren't going in and out of anywhere. Footsteps, a female voice, the two knocks in response to my, we got that. We felt touched a lot of times during that mine. I think the mine is probably the most haunted area of that building. Equipment going off, including motion sensors, an alarm followed by a no. Because I think we asked, was that you? And we heard no. And then the history connection, I'll let you talk about that.
This one it's a lot loose. It's not as, you know, classic cave, frame, the horse for the Presidio. But we think about all the different artifacts that are in there. And it's like all the people who, you know, it's like worked with it, touched it, been with it throughout their life. So yeah, they hold on to that energy. So like transportation exhibit, maybe it was their product. You know, it makes sense as to why we would have experiences with a lot of these old objects. Like I said, the artifacts include a wagon and buggy, and just lots of personal artifacts of miners and various native people.
Yeah, they even have, I think, Wyatt Earp's wedding ring, I believe.
They have sign of his, yeah.
So
makes sense.
And in their basement where, you know, no one goes, they have so many artifacts down there of photos from families. And back in those days, you all just have like one photo per family. So, you know, attachments to those can definitely grow.
Yeah. And two, within that is also like the state archives for Southern Arizona. So there's a lot of also like old maps, old paperwork, all sorts of old things too in the same building.
All right, so Fox Theater. I'll let you do the history on this.
All right, so the Fox Theater opened on April 11th, 1930, so it's almost 100. But it was as a vaudeville comedy and movie house. It's located in downtown Tucson. And then when I went searching through the various maps, in that area was originally a locksmith business, according to the 1901 map. and it was called Maiden Lane. The theater itself was built for more performances originally, but then the talkies came in, and immediately we had to shift course because that became the new hip thing. It became way more popular. I always like this fun fact. The Fox was the first building in Tucson to be cooled by air conditioning. So
That's so important in Tucson.
I know to think about. Okay, so 1930. So the Fox Theater was shut down in 1974, but started being remodeled in 1999, and then was reopened in 2005. And now we have various performances and stuff go through Fox Theater. That picture,
Including our Paracon that we had at one point in time. Yep.
Yeah, and that picture is from 1934. There's like one other older picture, but you can't see. All you can see is like the side. So this one, you could actually like see the theater in its full glory in 1934.
All right, so our experiences. I've been lucky enough to work with Fox a few different times. I worked with them during COVID to try to help them bring in some money when you couldn't, have concerts and et cetera. But we've seen shadows in there. We had the lights dimming. I was in charge of the lights, and I knew that they didn't just dim. You had to manually do it, and they would be dimming and go brighter. We've seen apparitions. We've heard footsteps. We've heard furniture being dragged across a floor. We did get my shirt got tugged on super hard, which actually freaked me out. I think this is the first time I've literally cursed at an investigation. I've never been tugged on as hard as this point in time. It was crazy. I know we've had ghost hunts there, paracons there. We've done a lot there. They also did have one death in the remodel, and in the Fox Theater, when you go in, they have one tile that faces, I think it's down instead of up. I know it's the opposite of the other tiles to honor the person that did, fall off the ladder and died there. I'll let you do. I let Kira do all the history because this is her job.
So downtown Tucson, if you're not aware, is very haunted because there's just a lot of history on that part of the land. The land where the Fox is now was actively used during at least the Mexican period to the Presidio time, if not earlier. I know really close in downtown, there's been, evidence of, indigenous, so the Hohokam and things like that, using that area for thousands of years, evidence of pit houses and stuff. So this is a really old area that's been actively used, people living on it, things like that. So a lot of energy, and there's a lot of people just been through that area. I thought it was interesting. It's originally, because the roads, some of the roads end up being had to be demolished, redone, as Tucson has grown and has changed shape over the years since, it started being settled in the 1700s, 1600s. Maiden Lane, which it originally was on, we kind of look at the maps, used to be the red light district, which I thought was just really interesting. So that too usually has a lot more violence and things like that can lead to maybe some spirit hanging around.
And this is why our ghost tour, our walking tour, focuses on downtown Tucson, because it's gone through probably the most changes, out the whole Tucson area.
Yeah, and also downtown too, like we mentioned before, used to be a cemetery used, for the military and things like that. So I know nearby that area, bodies have been found since the 1970s when they had remodeled, things like that. So a lot of different things as to why this area is so
Haunted, yes.
Experiences.
All right, so if you want to learn more, of course, take my haunted history tour of downtown Tucson. Definitely look up TucsonGhostCompany.com. You can buy my book there too on Paranormal. We talk about, some of these experiences we have had. And I believe that is all Kira has. So any questions for us? All right, well, thank you.
Well, how has the paranormal ghost hunting investigation changed since you began?
I don't really think that there's been major changes since I began 13 years ago. I think more equipment has come out, and in all honesty, I don't really trust the equipment. Equipment always has its good and bad, which I also talk about this in my book. Everything you use, you have to be able to know what your equipment does, because something else will set it off. My biggest thing is I think more people get into this looking to find ghosts, and that's not what you're in this for. You're looking to try to help the ghost. You're looking to try to find evidence and not go in and assume everything's haunted. So I think the most thing that has changed is we have more people believing, and they don't go in as skeptics trying to debunk. Instead, they're calling everything a ghost. And that's probably where the most has changed, because more people are in it for a thrill over, actually doing the research and actually trying to find the haunting and help. All right, thank you.